The first time I noticed something different about Ryan was during a late practice session under the floodlights. Most of the team had already cleared out, leaving just the two of us to clean up the training cones and stretch off the stiffness in our legs. Ryan, always the life of the locker room, had his usual grin plastered on his face, joking about how the coach probably had a personal vendetta against us. But there was something in the way he lingered when we stripped off our muddy jerseys, his eyes darting toward me for just a fraction longer than necessary before he looked away. I told myself I was imagining it. I had to be. Ryan had a girlfriend, Chloe, who often came to our matches with her loud cheers and sweet smile. He was straight, the kind of guy everyone assumed was untouchable when it came to curiosity. And me, I was the one carrying the secret, buried so deep I didn't dare let it surface around the guys. Rugby demanded toughness. It demanded discipline, and it definitely didn't leave much room for someone like me to show softness or attraction toward another man. Still, Ryan made it hard not to feel something. His easy confidence, his broad shoulders that filled the doorway when he walked into the locker room, the way he always clapped me on the back after a good tackle as though I were his closest ally. All of it fed the quiet hunger I fought to keep under wraps. He wasn't just my teammate. He was my roommate during away games, the one I trusted to cover for me when I was late to training. The guy who insisted on splitting his fries with me after matches, even though he could devour the whole plate himself. There were nights after practice when he'd flop down beside me on the worn sofa in the clubhouse, his thigh brushing mine, laughing at some stupid video on his phone. Those moments lingered long after he left. I'd replay them in my head, wondering if I was reading too much into it, punishing myself for even thinking there could be something more. He'd talk about Chloe sometimes, how she nagged him about leaving socks on the floor, or how she hated when he stayed out too late after matches. I'd smile, nod, and pretend it didn't sting to hear her name. Pretend it didn't make me wonder what it would be like if he spoke about me that way, with the familiarity of someone who belonged to him. One afternoon, after a particularly rough scrimmage, we ended up the last two in the showers. Steam filled the tiled room, water streaming down our bodies as we stood a few feet apart. Ryan cracked a joke about how he needed me to scrub the dirt off his back because he couldn't reach, and he laughed when he saw the look on my face. He had no idea what that kind of teasing did to me. Or maybe he did. Maybe part of him liked watching me squirm, liked testing the boundaries of our friendship with jokes that walked the line between harmless and suggestive. I laughed it off, but my heart raced so fast I could hardly breathe. Over time, the teasing became more pointed. A slap on my ass after a good play. A smirk when he caught me staring too long at his biceps while he taped them before a game. "You checking me out, bro?" he'd say, and I'd stammer a denial, cheeks burning while he laughed like it was all just part of the joke. But there was something behind his laughter sometimes, something almost daring, as if he was pushing me to see how far I'd go. I told myself he was just playful, that he didn't mean anything by it. Still, I couldn't ignore the growing tension between us, the undercurrent that buzzed every time we were alone. It became harder to convince myself that it was only in my imagination, the way his gaze lingered when I peeled off my shirt after a grueling match, the way his hand would stay pressed against my shoulder a second longer than necessary, the way he leaned in when we talked late at night. It all built a quiet storm inside me. Yet no matter how strong the pull became, I knew the boundaries. Ryan had Chloe. He had a life that didn't include me in the way I wanted. And even if he were curious, even if those lingering looks meant something, stepping across that line meant betrayal, not just of his girlfriend, but of the fragile trust between us as teammates. I swore to myself I wouldn't be the one to ruin that. I would keep my desire buried, hidden beneath the noise of the game and the sweat of the field. But some nights, when we were the last two in the locker room and the air between us felt heavier than it should, I couldn't help but wonder how long that resolve would last. It was after one of our toughest matches of the season that the tension between us finally came to the surface. We had scraped out a narrow win, both of us bruised and battered, and by the time we finished the post-game rituals with the team, it was late into the night. Ryan suggested we head back to his apartment instead of the pub, saying he wasn't in the mood for the noise and the crowd. Chloe was away for the weekend, visiting her family, and the idea of having time alone with him tugged at something I tried to suppress. I told myself it was just about relaxing after a hard match, nothing more. His place was warm and familiar. I'd been there countless times, sharing takeout or crashing on the couch after late nights. But that night, everything felt different. Ryan dropped his gear bag by the door, grabbed 2 beers from the fridge, and handed me one with that easy grin that always disarmed me. We sank into the couch, the game replaying silently on the TV while we nursed our drinks. My body ached from the tackles, but my mind was restless, trapped in the small space between wanting to be close to him and fearing what might happen if I crossed a line. Ryan was the first to break the silence. "You know," he said, staring at the ceiling as if the words were heavy, "sometimes I wonder what it'd be like to try something different." I frowned, confused. "Different how?" He turned his head to look at me, his eyes glassy from the alcohol but steady, like with a guy. His words hung in the air, sharp and unbelievable, like a tackle I didn't see coming. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I couldn't speak. I tried to laugh it off. "You've had too much to drink," but Ryan didn't laugh. He sat up, leaning his elbows on his knees, and ran a hand through his messy hair. "I'm serious, Ethan, I've thought about it. Not just with anyone, though. I mean, it'd have to be someone I trust." His voice dropped lower, almost a whisper. "Like you." The room felt suddenly smaller, the air thicker. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure he could hear it. Every warning in my head screamed that this was dangerous, that Chloe existed, that this was wrong, that teammates didn't do this. Yet beneath the guilt, a wave of heat surged through me. Ryan wanted me. At least he was curious enough to say it. I forced myself to ask, "What about Chloe?" He sighed, leaning back against the couch. "I love her, you know I do. But this isn't about replacing her. It's curiosity, something I can't shake. And if I'm gonna find out, I'd rather it be with you than some stranger." His honesty left me reeling. For years I'd buried the thought of being with him, convincing myself it was impossible. Now here he was, offering me the very thing I'd dreamed of, while at the same time tying it in knots with the shadow of betrayal. I shook my head, trying to steady myself. "Ryan, if we did that, it wouldn't just be curiosity. It would mean something. At least for me." He studied me, his expression softening. "Maybe that's what scares me." His hand brushed against mine on the couch, lingering just long enough for the touch to spark electricity up my arm. "But I can't stop thinking about it." "About you?" The world outside didn't exist anymore. The silence was deafening, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I could feel his body heat next to me, the subtle press of his thigh against mine, the weight of everything he wasn't saying. I wanted to resist. I wanted to be the good friend, the loyal teammate, the man who respected the boundaries. But I also wanted him more than I'd ever wanted anything. Ryan moved first. His hand slid over mine, firm this time, no longer tentative. I froze, breath caught in my throat, as his fingers laced with mine. He turned slightly, his shoulder brushing mine, his face so close I could see the hesitation in his eyes. He wasn't sure. He was testing me, testing us, testing the limits of what we could be. My chest rose and fell rapidly, every nerve ending alive with the tension of the moment. I didn't pull away. I didn't stop him, and in that stillness he leaned closer, his forehead resting lightly against mine. A gesture so intimate it unraveled every wall I'd built. "I don't know what I'm doing," he whispered. "Neither do I admitted. But we both knew something had already shifted. The boundary had been crossed, and whether we went further or not, nothing between us would ever be the same. The moment stretched between us, fragile and dangerous, like a held breath waiting to shatter. His forehead pressed against mine, and for a heartbeat I thought he would pull back, laugh it off as another one of his jokes. But then Ryan tilted his head just slightly, and his lips brushed mine. It was hesitant, almost clumsy, but it sent a surge of fire through my veins. I froze, torn between the instinct to retreat and the overwhelming desire to finally taste what I had been craving for so long. When I didn't move, he pressed a little harder, the kiss deepening with a nervous urgency. His hand tightened around mine, anchoring us in that forbidden place. My mind screamed Chloe's name, screamed about betrayal and guilt, but my body betrayed me even more. I leaned into him, kissing him back with a hunger I had buried for years. Ryan pulled away first, his chest heaving as if he'd just run a sprint. "God," he muttered, raking his hand through his hair. I didn't think I'd actually do it." My voice was shaky. "Do you regret it?" He looked at me, eyes conflicted, a storm of desire and doubt swirling in them. "No, not yet, do you?" I swallowed hard, unable to lie. "No." And with that, he kissed me again. Harder this time, less cautious, as if he had given himself permission to explore what he wanted. His hands moved to my shoulders, pulling me closer, and I let him. The couch became too small, the room too hot, as the dam finally broke. Years of repression and denial poured out in every touch, every kiss, every breathless whisper. But even as I gave in, guilt gnawed at the edges of my pleasure. I saw Chloe's face in flashes, imagined her laughter, her trust in Ryan, the way she looked at him from the sidelines. She didn't know. She couldn't know. And still I didn't stop. I couldn't. Ryan's body trembled against mine, his inexperience with another man obvious, but there was something raw and real about it. He wasn't just experimenting. He was unraveling, letting me see a side of him he had hidden from everyone, maybe even from himself. Between the gasps and the silence, I could hear the truth. This wasn't just about curiosity. There was something deeper he couldn't name, and I was the one holding it with him when it was over. We sat in the dim light, sweat cooling on our skin, the weight of what we had done settling over us like a heavy cloak. Ryan leaned back against the couch, covering his face with his hands. "This has to stay between us," he said, his voice rough, almost desperate. "Chloe can't ever know." "No one can," I nodded, my throat tight. "I know, but knowing didn't make the guilt easier to bear." My chest ached with the contradiction. I had finally gotten what I wanted, yet it came at the cost of betrayal. I had crossed a line I promised myself I never would, and now there was no going back. Ryan glanced at me, eyes filled with something I couldn't fully read. "You mean a lot to me, Ethan, more than I realized. But this, I don't know what it means. I don't even know what I am anymore." His words cut deeper than I expected. I wanted to tell him he didn't need a label, that what happened between us was real enough without definition. But I also knew he would return to Chloe, return to the life that made sense, while I would be left with the memory of a night we weren't supposed to have. The silence stretched on, heavier than before. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, trying to steady the storm inside me. "We'll figure it out," I said quietly, though I wasn't sure if I believed it. Ryan exhaled, running his hand along his jaw. "I just know one thing. I don't regret being with you tonight. I can't regret it even if I should." His honesty both comforted and hurt me, because I knew when morning came, when Chloe returned, this night would vanish into the shadows, hidden beneath layers of denial and secrecy. And yet I also knew it would never leave me. It would haunt me in the way his lips felt on mine, in the way his voice cracked when he admitted his fear, in the way we had both chosen desire over loyalty. As I gathered my things to leave, he caught my wrist, holding me back just for a moment. "Promise me," he whispered. "Promise me this stays between us." I looked into his eyes, saw the pleading there, the fear of losing everything he had. And though my heart screamed for more, for honesty, for love, for something real, I nodded. "I promise." I walked out into the cool night air, my body still humming from his touch, my soul heavy with the weight of the secret we now shared. Rugby had brought us together, bound us as teammates, as brothers. But desire had taken us somewhere else entirely, somewhere we could never admit existed. And as much as I wanted to believe it was just one night, deep down, I knew it wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of a dangerous bond that could break us both.